Alrighty guys, so this is the video that we're going to do for the respiratory system. We're going to look at its structure, we're going to look at its function, we're going to look at how those are related, and I'm going to just explain the diagram, explain which labels you need to learn, and then also a couple of definitions. Okay, so we're going to jump right in. So you've got your respiratory system over here, you've got your learning objectives. Don't worry too much about that, it's just what you need to know. Okay. You then got the activity, don't worry about the activity. All right, what I want to start with is these three words: breathing, gaseous exchange, and respiration, right? These are three definitions that you need to know, and you need to be able to write them down pretty much word for word and explain them to me. All right, so breathing, the very simple process, inhaling and exhaling of air by the lungs. That is it, right? You are taking the air in, you are breathing the air out. That is breathing, very simple. Okay, the gaseous exchange, slightly more difficult, right? So the first thing I want you to note is the process. It's called diffusion, right? So you did diffusion in Form 1, you should know what it is. So gaseous exchange is the diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the air sacs, which we call the alveoli, and the blood that happens in your lungs. And then at the cells of your body, there's also gaseous exchange because now the oxygen has to get from the blood into the actual cells. Okay, so I'm going to pull up a picture of the alveoli just so you can visualize what's happening, how it's happening in terms of gaseous exchange. So the first picture I want to show you is this one. Okay, this is what your lungs look like. Right at the end of your bronchioles, the little tubes, you've got millions and millions of these little air sacs. Right? Every single one of these is called an air sac or an alveoli, right? And surrounding them is capillaries, blood vessels, right? Those capillaries are carrying blood, okay? And what happens is the air, you breathe in, and all of those little sacs fill up with air. You breathe out, and all the air comes out of those sacs, okay? If we look at an even smaller level, so now we've just got one alveoli. Right, you can see there's air coming in here as you breathe in. Inside the air is oxygen, right? And that oxygen is going to diffuse from that air sac into the blood. The CO2 that's in the blood is going to diffuse into the air sac, which you will then breathe out. Okay, this O2 in, CO2 out, that process is gaseous exchange. Okay, and the whole point of it is to get oxygen into the blood and CO2 out of the blood. Okay, the CO2 is poisonous, we need to get it out, so we breathe it out. Okay, so that whole process is called gaseous exchange, right? You need to know that definition. Okay, then the other definition we've got here is respiration, right? So respiration is not the same as breathing, it's very different. Respiration is a chemical reaction. Okay, and what happens is we need energy to live, right? Every single process of your body needs energy. Blinking, I'm using energy. Okay, so respiration is getting that energy from food, and your food gets broken down into glucose. The glucose and the oxygen that you've just breathed in, right, undergo a chemical reaction. The products are carbon dioxide, which you breathe out, water, which can stay in your body, and energy. Right, and the energy is what we use to live. Okay, so this process, respiration, the release of energy from glucose in the cells, it happens in your cell, okay, of all living organisms. Okay, and this is the equation. It's called the word equation. Just like the one for photosynthesis, you have to know this off by heart. And if you're smart, you'll notice that it's actually the opposite to photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is carbon dioxide plus water, giving you glucose and oxygen. Respiration is the other way around. The glucose and the oxygen are combining to give you carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Energy being the important part there. Okay, so learn these three definitions, be able to recite them for me, but also be able to explain them. What is happening in breathing, gaseous exchange, and respiration. Okay. After those definitions, we now are going to look at our respiratory organs, right? So these are the organs that we use to breathe. right? The organs that we use to get air in and air out. Okay, so air enters the body through the nose and mouth. It's better to breathe in through the nose, where there are many small tubes called nasal passages, which warm the air and make it moist, right? Warm air and moist air will have better diffusion, so you're going to get more oxygen into your blood. Okay. Also, bacteria, dust, and smoke can be trapped by the mucus in your nostrils. Okay, so that it doesn't get into your lungs and cause an infection. Okay, so what I actually want to do is just go straight to this diagram. Okay, so we can look at where's the air coming from and what are all the organs and structures it passes through. Okay, so you've got your nasal cavity. This is your nose over here, right? That is where you should be breathing in air. You can also breathe it in through your mouth. Okay, it comes down your tube. Remember this, the epiglottis. Okay, the epiglottis is there to block your trachea so that when you swallow, it doesn't go into your lungs. It goes down your esophagus. Okay, so you've got the epiglottis. The pharynx is your throat. The larynx is your voice box right down here. Okay. Then you've got your trachea, which splits into your bronchus, and then your bronchus splits into your bronchioles. Okay, you have to know all of these labels: trachea, bronchus, bronchioles, right? Inside your trachea, right, there are these things called rings of cartilage, right? And they are C-shaped, so it's not a full ring like this, they're C-shaped. And they sit like this in your trachea, and that's to keep it open. Otherwise, it would just collapse. Okay, so you need that cartilage going down, so when you breathe in and breathe out, the trachea doesn't shut. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem. Okay, so you need those C-shaped rings of cartilage. Okay, right, and then obviously at the end of your bronchioles is your lungs. Remember, and we just said that each lung is made up of millions of alveoli or alveolus. Okay, you need to know this diagram. You need to be able to label it. And right at the bottom, you've got the diaphragm. Okay, so the diaphragm, very important muscle that helps you breathe in and out. No diaphragm, no breathing. Okay, and then this would be, we've cut them open, but that whole cavity would be protected by your ribs, right? Your ribs come over and cover that cavity. Okay, so you need to know all of these labels, right? My best suggestion would be just to sit and look at this picture. Print it out, stick it next to your bed, look at it and learn all of those different labels. All right. Okay, that's just a picture of an air sac, which I've shown you already, right? The next important thing we need to do is this idea of the breathing mechanism, right? How do we breathe in and how do we breathe out? And it's called the breathing mechanism. Okay, and what I've done is a table. You might not have this table, so what I would do is pause the video and copy this table down. Okay, so breathing in versus breathing out, right? So the first thing is you've got all these little muscles in between your ribs called the intercostal muscles. Okay, when you breathe in, all of those muscles contract, right? And as they contract, they pull your ribs up and out. Okay, I'm actually going to add that here. Okay, so your ribs move up and out. Okay, as those contract, they pull the ribs up and out. Okay, your diaphragm, which is normally like this, contracts and flattens like that as you breathe in. Okay, now because you are doing that and your ribs are moving out, the volume in your chest cavity actually increases, right? Because you've made more volume, your ribs have moved out the way. Okay, an increase in volume means there is a decrease in pressure. Okay, so you've got volume increasing. Because that's happened, your pressure has decreased. Okay, so now lung air will move from outside your lungs to inside where there's less pressure. Okay, so your intercostal muscles contract, your ribs move up and out, your diaphragm flattens. Okay, now you've got increased volume, which means you have decreased pressure. So air moves from outside, inside. Air always goes from where there's high pressure to where there's low pressure. Okay, so you've just lowered the pressure in your chest cavity. So now the air is going to move from outside to inside. Okay, that's breathing in. We want the air to come in. Breathing out is the opposite. Okay, so now your intercostal muscles relax and your ribs move down and in, right? So now they're moving back in. Okay, your diaphragm goes back to its relaxed position. It's a dome, right? So it just goes boop and it relaxes like that. Okay, which means now there's less volume in your chest because your ribs have moved in, they're squashing everything. Your diaphragm's come up, it's squashing everything, right? Decreased volume means that there's an increase in pressure. Now there is more pressure inside your lungs than the air outside. So your air moves from your lungs out of your mouth. Remember, always moves from high pressure to low pressure. Okay, so that is your breathing mechanism. It's quite tricky, but read through this table, practice it on yourself. Feel as you breathe in what's happening, as you breathe out what's happening. Okay, and as you do that, it's quite logical. You'll be able to feel, oh yeah, my ribs are moving out, so therefore the volume is increasing, or my ribs are moving in. What's happening? Okay, so make sure that you get this table down and you can learn it and then be able to explain to me the breathing mechanism. That's what this is called. Okay, I'm going to stop this video here so that you can watch it. You can please make sure, like I said, you learn those definitions, be able to explain them to me. You learn this diagram, right? All of the different organs, structures that are involved in breathing, and then you can learn this table for the breathing mechanism. How do I breathe in? How do I breathe out? Okay, I will do another video on respiration just now.